Amazon as a platform to be able to cater to businesses that don't even sell on Amazon. So let's say you have an in-market or a lifestyle audience on Amazon based on people that purchase fitness equipment. Going to be running the ads just to make sure that what you're doing is ultimately suitable for the platform and for the target audience.
This is the Rock and Roll Startup. It's business, it's music, it's entrepreneurship at its finest. Thank you all for joining us again on the Rock and Roll Startup. We've got Sam Lee here with me, an amazing Amazon guru, I guess you could say, with his background and being able to help so many different.
That term's thrown around.
It's such a tortured term, right? But someone who's a very big expert in helping small business people and those who want to be successful selling on Amazon. And we're going to talk a lot about video content in that space, how important it is to be able to stand out and to be able to position yourself in a unique way. So let's dive in.
Love to see it. So yeah, I mean, I guess the overarching theme we have here is going to be video, and video specifically in the Amazon space has been, I mean, it's been a huge focus for them, right? So I guess just overarching view, video has been something that Amazon's been incorporating more and more in a variety of ways. For one, things like sponsored brand video ads, two, incorporating more forms of video content generally on the pages. And then three, and this is the big one, Amazon has been making a really heavy push towards video content managed through both PPC and DSP now. But things like streaming TV have been a huge focus. Their acquisition of Twitch, which is heavily focused around video content. Any of those that use Amazon Prime Video now, unless you upgrade to a higher version, Amazon Prime now has ads on everything that you'll watch. Previously, that was just Freevee/IMDb that had those video ads. But now if you're watching Amazon Prime, unless you pay a couple extra bucks, you're going to be seeing ads, which as a consumer pisses me off a little bit, but as somebody who runs the ads is very exciting. So in this world, I mean, people like you, it's a big opportunity. And one thing that I think is worth talking about is it's the involvement of Amazon as a platform to be able to cater to businesses that don't even sell on Amazon. So we can talk more about that, but generally speaking, Amazon was always viewed as a platform that you could tap into advertising to sell your products on Amazon. And that's still the main focus, right? But what's known as non-endemic advertising, so advertising for brands that functionally do not sell natively on Amazon, is now a big option. And you can tap into Amazon's first party data and serve video content using that data to find your key demographic and promote your business no matter what that business is. So that opens up a variety of things for people in the video production space. I mean, you could already sell to functionally anyone, but opening up that advertising channel, I think is going to be huge, and it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I'd be interested. So in terms of the clients you're working with and seeing things that are like natively sold on Amazon or not, are you seeing that just because there's such the amount of human beings on the platform that it's just a great advertising channel for that? Or what is the reasoning behind why they're wanting to, I guess, pull people away from just a centralized Amazon product in general, right? Because if you're not selling on the platform, it seems like it's counterintuitive, right? But I'd be interested to hear kind of your spin on why you think they're trying to do that.
Yeah, I mean, one big thing, generally speaking, is the way that Amazon collects and owns data, right? And what makes them unique is that they own all of their data. It's a little bit of a black box. Not a lot of people generally get access to that info, but they're not subject to the same sort of privacy, cookie, security update issues that companies like Meta and Google are. So let's say, as an example, Apple rolls out a security update, cookies, people's privacy are a concern. Facebook and Google advertisers get heavily impacted by that. And back when I used to advertise on those platforms, it was a huge deal. It was like everyone around the office running around going crazy when there was a new privacy update. Amazon owns all their data, and they have no restrictions in terms of the way that they can use it to market. And beyond that, so they're not subject to those sorts of security updates in the same way. But beyond that, it's really interesting because Amazon's unique in that the data that they collect is specific to user browsing and purchase behavior, as opposed to general web browsing and like interest-based behavior on Facebook, right? So like let's say you're a company like Beachbody, okay? They are obviously looking to promote to people that are interested in fitness, and you can utilize Facebook, you can utilize Google to identify those people. But a unique way to do it is utilizing what people are purchasing on Amazon. So let's say you have an in market or a lifestyle audience on Amazon based on people that purchase fitness equipment, that purchase protein powders. That is a very large signal that this is somebody that's into fitness. And now the ability for a company like Beachbody, who does not sell products on Amazon, to tap into that data and serve video content to those people is a really interesting premise.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting to me because I think about as you're serving video content to these people, if it is so segmented and it's based on purchase behavior, then you really can, the creative doesn't have to be as kind of clickbaity, I would say. It can be more intentional, right? And I think there's something powerful to that.
Totally.
Even think about the ads maybe that were created when privacy laws weren't as strict. I mean, nowadays, a lot of advertising is kind of going back to the original model of years ago where you get this, yeah, it's
Grassroots.
grassroots. You have this big, cool thing that you're trying to show a ton of people. And when in reality, only 1% of the people who see that ad are going to be your target audience. But the benefit of having something that's so segmented like this
Yep.
is you can make a hyper niche. You can even have your language be super technical and it'll still hit because they know exactly what that is. Like,
Totally.
for example, I bought some new camera gear and a new tripod and different things that way. If you were trying to sell that those products to the mass market, you'd have to talk about it like more lifestyle feel, general, kind of just show it. That's
Totally.
cool. But if you can be super technical when you're showing an ad and it's very search based. So in terms of placement for these ads, I'd be
Yeah.
interested
Great
to
point.
see like, are these going to be the banner ads in, on Amazon Prime when people are digging around there? Are these going to be baked within the different products you're seeing on Amazon? Where should us as video creatives, as we're creating this content, where are we going to see these as we put these ads for the clients?
Yeah. So think about it like a commercial, right?
Yeah.
Like if you've ever had a streaming service and not paid for the ad-free version, you're actively interrupted in what you're watching. Ads will show, and then you resume your show. Um, there are a lot of options for video content, like OLV, online video. It's been around for a while, and that's generally on the internet. Any you can do it when you're playing games, when you're watching, content on a variety of websites. But streaming TV is really unique in that Freevee and Amazon Prime, especially with all the new content that Amazon is actively producing, um, it will actively interrupt what you're watching. And the other interesting thing I think is that there are a couple ways that Amazon's incorporated QR codes into this sort of thing.
Right.
So this is more specific to brands that are selling on Amazon, but all the content that Amazon produces for brands will have a QR code at the end. You scan that QR code on your phone, takes you right to their Amazon store. It tracks those. It even, if you don't have a QR code within the video itself, Amazon can place an overlay for a QR code. You can scan it right on your TV and it'll take you right to the store. So it's very disruptive. I'd say the pro and the con of this sort of targeted advertising. The pro is that, like you said, you can get technical, pretty definitively that you can reach your target audience. Downside is the CPMs are going to be pretty high. You need a pretty substantial budget to really give this thing a fair shot. So this is not for small brands. On average, Amazon usually recommends that you spend I have a client right now that Amazon's recommendation for their first streaming TV buy is $100,000 a month. And for some brands, not a big deal. Most regular human beings, that's part of my French. That's no effing joke. Um, but I mean, you can do it with much less than that. But that's typically like this is not for everyone. But by cutting out a lot of the small brands at the same time, they're opening the doors to bigger brands that might even not even sell on Amazon. As an example, I ran a video buy for LA Metro.
Oh, interesting.
You don't think of them
No.
correlated with Amazon at all, but we were able to do targeting by zip code, targeting by income segments, transit rider propensity, and the CPMs were pretty high, but the engagement was great.
Right. I like that because in terms of that, when you were making the creative for this, when you were just buying, were you just positioning the ads, or are you actually going in and you're creating the whole process of the commercial? Are you scripting it? Are you putting together a production team, or what's your involvement in that process?
Yeah, so I am the media buyer. So the creative stuff is done on the client side. I can advise, but typically as a media buyer, I am at the mercy of whatever content that they give me to serve. I handle the targeting, the bidding, the placements, but they create the content, or someone like you can create the content for them. And I think that it is important for people on the video production side to, if you have this sort of the ability to do this, to be close with the people that are actually going to be running the ads, just to make sure that what you're doing is ultimately suitable for the platform and for the target audience.
Yeah, it is suitable to understand that a lot of people who are in the small business space usually consider that if you're a marketing guy, you do all the things, but segmenting and figuring out that like when you're
Yeah,
going to position the ad, there's a lot of creativity that goes into to structuring how you're going to position
100%.
it, right? Because you can have the exact some image that if you put it in the wrong place, it's going to be funky too. So, in terms of the size of clients that you're typically working with in the Amazon space, are you mainly working with people who have that budget to run $100,000 a year, or are you mainly working with
No.
people who have the lower? Like give me a baseline of who you're working with, so I can kind of understand more of the content level that we're
Yeah.
creating there.
So generally speaking, the revenue amount that a brand or any company is going to have to be bringing in order to really effectively tap into video is pretty large. Like we work with a lot of small to medium sized brands who will run basic display, Amazon DSP advertising. So that's just product images pulled into display, serving on and off Amazon. You don't need a huge budget to be able to effectively tap into that. When you start talking video, I would say that most brands don't even touch video until they're spending at least 40 to 50,000 a month on general display. You can do it with less depending on what your goals are, really, but it's definitely more of a high budget sort of play. And we work with clients big and small, so it's applicable to some and not to others. But they're mostly it's just a big education component. I mean, I've had small brands express interest that I've had to say absolutely not, and then I've had big brands with tons of budget that don't see the value and they absolutely should. So there's always going to be some educational component to it. But honestly, people like you are so incredibly important to what I do, just because as a media buyer, we are completely at the mercy of the quality of the creative. Like I can take the most perfect target audience ever, and I can spoon feed it to people right where they want to see it. And if the video sucks, it's not going to elicit any response from them.
Yeah, and it goes the other way too, right? Because you can have the most dope, creative, high-end production. You could drop $500,000 on the coolest ad ever, but if the right people aren't
Yeah,
seeing it, it's the same problem, right? And so it is really the
yeah,
tandem partnership in terms of that. So with your background with the Amazon sellers, are you only advertising on Amazon strictly, or are you also trying to cross-platform to other social media channels to bring people onto Amazon to also buy there? Um, what's the biggest
yeah.
element there?
That's a great question. So we specifically only do Amazon. DSP ads are obviously eligible to show off Amazon as well. But in terms of other social platforms, that's a really interesting question. And it's something that I talk about every single day, is because whether, like, typically speaking, we partner with other agencies who do, let's say meta ads, TikTok ads, things like that. And honestly, whether or not they're directing to Amazon directly, that is one of the biggest things to drive Amazon sales is advertising on those platforms, pushing video content on those platforms. If you drive to Amazon, awesome. Make sure your URLs are appended so it opens in the app and you don't go to a sign in page. But anyways, Amazon, the one thing that we say a ton is that Amazon is a demand capture platform, not a demand generation platform. I think that there is the exception now running the streaming TV stuff that does generate demand for those who can partake. That being said, a lot of the time Amazon shoppers will see an ad in on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. And one of the first things they do is they go and see if the product's available on Amazon. So we've definitely made recommendation to clients before who, like, let's say their branded search volume is going down, their, category is pretty saturated, and they're looking to push sales by pushing Amazon spend. Unless they're looking to invest in something like streaming TV, my recommendation is almost always increase your spend on Facebook and Meta, increase your spend on TikTok, or tap into those platforms if you're not already, and Amazon will immediately see the benefit from that.
Yeah, good to know. So are you managing the the ad buying on those platforms as well, or do you have like partners that you're sending out to that piece?
Partners, yeah, we don't. A lot of agencies do. We really, really heavily focus on Amazon.
I like that.
Amazon's kind of one of those tools where like you got to kind of double down or get out.
Right.
And we've seen people do both. When you try to have, like, we have, these two people over here that run the Amazon, it's like you can't do that with two people. You need a team.
Right.
So agencies have either built out entire teams, or they bring in agencies such as Delivered, and then we will plug in and function as the Amazon team within that agency for those clients that are interested, and we work with them.
Got it. Very cool. Yeah, it's just good to know too, because like a content supply, video supply, there's a lot of that element that we're starting to build out, but also figuring out what partnerships make sense when you're trying to get the ad buying pieces in place. Because at the end of the day, there's so many different types of products. Like we have one client that is involved with like Equal, Whole Earth Brands. They do all the sugar alternatives, right? And the positioning of them on Amazon, the types of videos we do for them can be even within their own product pages, within their own product sections, and that is kind of where the majority of the content we're making for Amazon is in that world too. Because I think it's interesting that as you bring in these different perspectives, that even the smallest brands can have something that's impactful in video, right?
Totally. Yeah, and I mean, there's video that drives conversion rate, and then there's video that drives demand. It can be the same video, it's just about where you put it.
Right.
So when it lives within the brand store, or it lives within, this is an ad, but sponsored brand ads, anything that's used as like similar to how you'd place video on a website, that's to drive conversion rate. But you can multi-purpose those same videos, use them as ads, utilize Amazon's first party data, serve them online video, serve them streaming TV, Twitch if it's applicable. So it's really important to be able to multi-purpose those videos. And, sometimes it's a different video that you're using that would be good for an ad versus, on your store, but not everyone has the budget for multiple videos. So it's just important to know that you can multi-purpose that type of thing. And a lot of people don't think about that.
Yeah. And that's the best way to make the right type of content, in my opinion. And it's if you're not trying to just make it for one particular thing, but you're trying to have it be cross-functional. Yeah. Right. It goes into the scripting and the filming.
I'm imagining that's a tricky thing in your world, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. One of the hardest things. So
when clients come to you,
yeah.
Do you, because I mean, and also there's the thought of like what works on TikTok versus what might work on Instagram. TikTok's so like UGC, here's this product, I love it, you should buy it. But like, and maybe that would work on Instagram, but like an Amazon video with that is like, that's not applicable. So how do you really go about that when, like, if you're working with a brand, let's say they have budget for one video, like how do you tackle that?
How I would tackle it, there's multiple ways. It would go to the style of the brand. So let's say you are like a makeup company, or you have something that would really do well on TikTok with a UGC style video. If they have a really small budget, I would go with someone who's looks like their target audience. It is going to do a kind of a demo of like, oh, I love this. This is how it works. It can work on both platforms, but they've got to, if you're doing it on TikTok, it can look like shit and it'll be okay. But if it's going on Instagram,
that's so
aesthetically,
true.
It's got to be a little sharper, right? So you probably got to shoot it on a DSLR. Yeah. You can still do vertical on both, and the video could be similar. But like, I would film iPhone on and the DSLR right here at the same time, and then position those differently, because TikTok really likes that native, homemade kind of vibe in terms of the algorithm. And I've honestly seen the same videos depending on the client. You could make the vertical with the captions and a lot of punchy things that are interesting. It'll work well on one platform versus the other. And it really just depends. There's no tried or true for sure ever with it. When you're trying to make content that can be cross-functional, it goes back to the methodology and the structure of what makes good content at all, right? You have to go back to what is the story, what are you trying to communicate, and what are you trying to convey to the people you're talking to. You don't focus
Yep.
as much on product. You focus on the overarching thing you're trying to explain. That's why video is such a compelling method of storytelling. Is you don't want to just say like, oh, I have this is the coolest drink ever. You love this drink. This is Prime. You need Prime. Drink Prime. Prime all day. When Red Bull was first starting out, they weren't just like showing cans of Red Bull all over the place.
Right.
It was Red Bull gives you wings.
Motorcycles,
freaking X Games, the coolest thing, fetching,
yeah,
sponsoring everything that's
genius.
action sports, and it's the lifestyle that was built around it. And that's also what you're doing with UGC, right? So if your brand would work really well with like some clean girl aesthetic chick that has got, the Botox, nice makeup, and she's showing, this makeup brand that she looks amazing. You're displaying that visually. That's the lifestyle. That's what I
want
want
to look amazing.
Right. I do too, man. I'm not...
and then you leave, you leave the education component, unless it is, let's say, a supplement product or something where you're really trying to convey benefits. It might be unique. Outside of that, like, you promote the lifestyle with your videos and with your awareness plays, and you leave the education to your product detail pages, to your website. So when people are interested and they want to go learn more, educate them there, as opposed to educating them within the content and having their eyes glaze over. They don't care.
It's true. It's all part of the funnel, right? As you're trying to get more people interested in what you do, you're trying to sell. Like, people want to, they want to be what they're not yet. They're trying to get to where they want to be. And with video, you can show them that right off the bat, right? If you're trying to sell guitars, you want to show a guy that rips.
Right? Why models are employed.
Right. It is 100% why models are employed. And they don't have to be expensive models. I mean, you've got mountains and mountains of people on like a Fiverr and an Upwork, and people that you just look up UGC, this town, and then you can just hit them up and say, hey, how much does it cost? Or you come to videosupply.com. We do it at scale with people. That
I still pop up. I did a stock photo shoot when I was like 22, and I'll still pop up in ads everywhere. Like, Joe Biden put out an ad that was like for insurance, and it's me and some woman, and I'm carrying a baby, and I'm like 22, and it still pops up.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah. Like, hey, the second I see that, I'm going to start putting that on every single ad and video that I possibly can now, so that I can say, hey, I know this guy. Because it's a cool
I show up in some pretty strange stuff, man.
Hey, it's
so funny.
Simu Liu, the guy that played Shang-Chi in Marvel. Have you seen his memes where he was in a ton of stock photos everywhere?
No.
I'll look that up sometime.
But it's relatable.
It's super. Yeah, I mean, you've experienced it. I mean, that's a totally different, super interesting thing. So we got to get you on camera more then.
I'll send you some examples later.
Yeah, dude, I'd love that.
Yeah.
With 10 out of 10 would love that. But yeah, going back to the overall element, it's the story you're telling, and there's different methods that you can do that nowadays. It doesn't have to be a movie. It doesn't have to be super complex. It doesn't have to be punch in your face. It's what are you visually showing that's telling your story, and those generally consistently go cross-platform.
Yep, totally. And I mean, it's got to be cool, man. In a lot of ways, I envy what you do. In other ways, I don't, in the sense of that those creative juices always have to be flowing, right? And like, that creative component is what makes work so exciting, but the subjectivity of it is probably tricky. Because we create content, even ours is way simpler, but we do product detail pages and brand stores, and we do great work, in my opinion, but we always run into those instances where everything's like perfect, it's set up for success, and then the client is just like, no, this isn't what we want, and back to the drawing board. So having that much subjectivity in your workflow is like, it's an exciting process, I'm sure, but it's got to be frustrating at times.
Oh, for sure. I 100% totally get that. This week we had one of the most baller YouTube videos at a 24-hour turnaround. Clients like, hey, we want this done in 24 hours. Send it over to the editor.
24 hours.
Yeah, it is not. That is not a normal thing. We were just trying to really over deliver and have it be something super dope. We got it back from my editor, and man, it was killer. I was so stoked about it. I thought it looked amazing. Motion graphics were solid. And then they just ghosted us and said like, oh yeah, it just wasn't like intricate enough. I was like, really? how interesting. And so it was
Yeah,
like
24-hour
24-hour turn,
turnaround.
exactly. And he was like, yeah, those draft one, man, like we can work it out. Like we can get more
Yeah,
drafts going. We can throw more graphics on that bad boy. Anything you want, man. We have the world at our
yeah,
fingertips. And so
yeah.
it's interesting. It's hard to be subjective sometimes when you're attached to something, but I think that's important for any business owner, right? It's your baby, right? You're working in 80 hours a week plus, and to, it's your kid. You're not going to say your kid is ugly or anything, right? You've got
Yeah,
to be
right.
objective about where you're truly at on it. It's even more so with creative practices. And sometimes when you're just constantly creating, sometimes you overdo it often, I would say. But sometimes it's
Totally.
good to like just take a step back and think,
Yeah.
what is what's actually necessary to get the job done in a good way, rather than just trying to like make something big and brash and
And especially this is something I think is more true the longer you work in a particular job, is that you get so good at particular things and so confident in what you do that it's easy to be blind to asking the questions to really uncover what a client is looking for. Like we as an agency are so profitability focused that we run efficiently. If we can get the same level of sales with less ad spend, we do it. We want their bottom line to grow. And we lost a client because we were running too efficiently and we weren't pushing the needle enough. And it's because we weren't asking those questions as often as we should have been.
right,
So it's important, especially in something as subjective as you do, is like, what do you like? Like, what are you really looking for out of this? Because it might be different than what you like.
right. And sometimes it's hard to find that line between, hey, the client wants this to visually look this way, but the consumer wants it to visually look this way. And bridging that gap is the element that's really important, especially when you're making creative, to try and attract anybody for a product. Because the client can say, "Oh, I want it to look like,
Totally.
I want it to look like Star Wars," but your customer's looking for Barbie movie. That's a totally
Right.
disconnect, right? Like there's a guy I knew that he wanted to do a
Yep.
Napoleon Dynamite type ad, but but the company that he owns and sells for does luxury remodels of like home theaters. So that it could work, but the disconnect in the style is going to be, it's going to be really unique,
Very
very, very
noticeable.
noticeable in the
Yeah.
style. And it's just kind of a misrepresentation of target audience and target brand. And so it depends, as you're talking to your
Yeah.
clients,
Does your
do they
target
understand who
audience
they're
love
trying to sell
Napoleon
to?
Dynamite?
Because like 8 out of 10
Yeah.
times, people don't know who the hell their people they're selling to are, you know, um,
Yeah.
that we
And it's
find.
especially true. I've noticed like sometimes I'll work with brands that their owner didn't get into this particular category because they were particularly interested in it. They got in because they identified a need and an opportunity to make money. And I'm all for that. But those people, more than anybody, need to remove themselves a bit from the marketing message because they are not the target demographic.
No,
So you can't base it on what would work on you. You got to listen to the consumer.
right. You really do. And you have to understand the types of content that consumers consuming, right? You're selling bulletproof vests. You got to go watch
Yep.
super conservative media to understand how to talk to these guys. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like there's all of that type of
100%.
angle that you have to figure out. So it's a very interesting
Totally.
process as a career, and as I work with clients on my own or with content supply, freelance, and all that. It's a journey to discuss and talk that
Totally.
through. It takes a lot of consulting, and then once people get the vision and they can understand how to communicate with them, I mean, it explodes. 9 times out of 10, it just explodes.
Totally.
But it's a journey of figuring out the first 6 months of making content consistently is hard.
Yep.
Consistency is
Yeah.
absolute
And it's
key.
like you got to use your own expertise, also listen to your client, and also educate your client on the concept of not all of their ideas are necessarily what's actually going to move the needle for their business.
Right.
So it's a lot of comms just even before you start filming anything.
Right. Totally. Totally. Yeah. A lot of the onboarding takes some time with that. And sometimes onboarding is perpetual in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because you just got to keep educating, keep
Yep.
talking, consult. So it's interesting. I'd be interested to hear for the people who are wanting to work with you or interested in kicking off an Amazon store. At what point would they be reaching out to you to be doing that? Because I work a lot of the people who listen to me. They're startups, they're founders, they're looking to get into
Yeah.
business. When would be the time they reach out to an Amazon centric agency like Delivered?
Yeah. Great question. Honestly, different agencies onboard clients at different phases in their cycle, right? But I'll speak for us personally. So I talk to people at all stages. I don't really work with brands until they're really ready to launch, and even then we're pretty hands off, just because I don't like, unless you're like VC backed and you're looking to put a bunch of money at things and you don't care if there's a slow grind. I don't like to work with brands until they're making money, because there's no reason to be incurring fees when your first 1 or 2 months being listed on Amazon are not going to be selling much. So typically speaking, we do help brands that are selling D2C get their Amazon store set up. We'll walk them through that process. We'll either be hands off, or if they want to pay us like $1,000 to set everything up for them, we can do that. We often work on a project basis really early on with brands, just to like build their product detail pages, get their brand store set up, just early conversion centric things that need to happen to make you ready to sell. And then usually we'll kick off things like PPC when you're at about the 30 review mark. Um, I think that I also am I'm a big advocate for doing those first steps on your own. Anybody can reach out to me at any time and I can give some light guidance on that. But I think it's really important to like set up your own Seller Central account, get in there and poke around, learn your way around, because it's not super intuitive and there's a lot to learn. Just because then when you do bring on an agency partner, you have that background and that level of education, that we're not constantly just explaining the smallest things. We can talk big picture, and you know the acronyms and you know what I'm talking about. And it also is going to be the only way that you're able to actually assess if your agency partner is doing a good job. Like it's the same thing for any advertising platform. Like when I was running Google ads, if I worked with a client who set up their own account, was doing it themselves for a little bit and realized they needed help, that's a totally different conversation than somebody who doesn't even understand how the platform works at all.
Right.
So I'm a big proponent of people setting up things on their own. They can reach out to us for creative support to get their product detail pages looking the way they want to look. Enroll in the Vine program to get some early reviews. And then we usually step in more hands-on when they're at that 30 plus review count. And then naturally, I mean, most of the brands we bring on are already up and selling and making money on Amazon, and they just want to grow. Um, but yeah, it's usually like, because the first 2 to 3 months on Amazon after getting listed are a grind. Like you're going to be slow in sales volume. You're going to start getting accustomed to Amazon's fees. You're going to roll out PPC, and you're going to be competing with people in your category that have significantly more reviews. It's a momentum based game, and it's a crawl, walk, run approach. So we usually like to step in once you're walking, not crawling, just because obviously we have fees attached. And if you're selling, you know, $1,000 a month on Amazon in total sales, and you're paying an agency another $1,000, like it's not, you're digging yourself into a hole right out of the jump. So I'd recommend doing the early stage stuff alone, or I can help you via email, and then we step in once you're ready to grow.
Got it. Makes sense. I mean, in all honesty, it's super important as someone is in the startup stage, whether they are in the bootstrapping element, which is most Amazon sellers. In my experience, the guys I know that get really into it and are starting, it's usually 1 or 2 people. They have this product, this idea, it's positioned well, or it's a unique product, and it just takes time to get it off the ground. And so it's got to be slow and steady if it's going to be something that lasts. Otherwise, it's like, oh, it's selling really hot right now, and it's going to be dead in a couple weeks or a year even.
Right.
And so making sure they understand the elements of the platform, so if their product does die, they can spin up another one, and they can spin up another one. And
you need to understand how the fulfillment system works. You need to understand how and when, like we provide inventory reports, but you got to understand how and when to send stock into Amazon so that you don't run out of stock. Running out of stock is an absolute killer for momentum for brands. So you need to really, like, we're an agency and we strategically help brands grow, but the back end logistic stuff within Seller Central, brands really need to understand how to do themselves.
It's hyper important, hyper important. So yeah, thanks for letting us know. Have them make sure to reach out for those that are getting into Amazon and selling there. So because the client size we work with are generally we're generally service based businesses, but we have a lot of product based businesses, do product photography, product videography. We can do, if you want that, just focusing on the product stuff. But often there's a service that we're kicking off Q2, Q3 this year called Brand Movie, that's going to be centric on the feeling behind your brand, that initial emphasis, giving a taste of what it's like to work with you. And so those types of companies that we work with, they're 500,000 to 3 million a year revenue, and it doesn't matter how many people are working under them. It's mainly service-based businesses that are consulting or business coaching. But the product ones, they're super fun to work with, because having something physical that you can show some of those pieces, it's great.
Totally.
It's super fun.
Yeah. And we can absolutely keep you in mind as well, because we do not do, like, we do creative work in the sense that we repurpose assets and images and make them Amazon friendly.
Perfect.
Text overlay, Photoshop, editing, but we don't take pictures or video.
Right.
And the amount of times I've run into a situation where a client's a great fit for various types of advertising that involve that type of creative, but they don't have the assets, that's a no-brainer handoff.
Right. And then passing it back and forth too. It'd be great. It's like, okay, sweet. You want to sell on Amazon? We got a guy always there, so yeah,
totally.
We'll keep the conversation going there, make sure that we can work that. And that's honestly what makes agencies successful. A lot of people don't see the back end of how that works, but the white labeling nature and the partnerships to make sure that you can fulfill and support your clients in the most positive way possible, by really executing and connecting with competent professionals at every position, right? Because even if you're hiring, if you're hiring locally, sometimes it's tough to get the most proficient professional in every position. And so it's nice to partner with the right.
Just making your pool smaller and smaller.
No kidding. So it's awesome. Well, anything else we want to touch on in terms of video content that we can kind of highlight for your listeners as we're talking through this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered it. I think the non-endemic stuff is huge. I think that understanding how and when to incorporate video is incredibly important. And then even if, things like Amazon streaming TV just aren't within your budget at the moment, any video content that you push on Amazon will impact your Amazon business 100%. And the more that people understand the fluidity between these channels when you're looking to sell products, the better off you're going to be.
Super love that. Yep. I could not agree more. So yeah, well, thanks Sam for a great conversation. Hope that everybody listening learned something, that if they've ever got questions, reach out to me directly, either Rock and Roll Startup Podcast or hit up videosupply.com and hit contact, and let's sit down and talk through different concepts for them. So thank you for joining us on the Rock and Roll Startup Podcast. If you're interested in being a guest, visit us at videosupply.com/contact. Again, videosupply.com/contact, and inquire about the podcast. Also, if you're interested in utilizing our video services, book a time with us. We'd love to sit down and chat and see what your goals are. Again, thank you for joining us for the Rock and Roll Startup.